Hello, Journey Fellowship. This week we're supposed to look at Genesis 12 through 30, which is the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The patriarchs you would think would have been examples that we'd want to live by, but not so. We're going to start with Abram, who shows up on the scene, and God told him, I will make you a great nation, I will bless you, and I will make your name great. This is 12 verse 2. Abram marries Sarai, a very beautiful woman, and during the time of famine they went to Egypt. Because of her beauty, he said that she was his sister, not his wife, out of fear. He was right. The Egyptian ruler saw her beauty and took her until he found that it was Abram's wife. They leave Egypt, they go to Canaan, Lot is with them. But there's some strife between Abram and Lot. Lot leaves. But Lot is captured and Abram goes to rescue. The Lord tells Abram that he's going to have offspring by Sarai, but because of the time frame, Sarai did not believe. So she gave her maid Hagar to produce all offspring, which resulted in Ishmael. In chapter 17, the Lord gave Abram the covenant of circumcision, ouch, and changed his name to Abraham. God called Sarai the mother of nations and named her Sarah. The Lord actually came to visit Abraham at one point, but he was on his way to Sodom. Abraham saw him in, invited him, and was told that Sarah was going to have a son. Sarah overheard this and laughed. Abraham finds out what the real reason is. He finds out he's going to go to Sodom and destroy it. So he bargains that if there was at least 10 righteous people there, God would spare Sodom. The two angels that were with the Lord went to Sodom. They met with Lot. There was a crowd that sought them out, and they were going to do some very crude things to them. The angel struck them with blindness and told Lot to leave. So Lot took his wife, 2 daughters, and left in a hurry. But Lot's wife looked back at the destruction of Sodom, and she turned into a pillar of salt. You can read this in chapter 19, verse 26. Lot lived with his daughters, but his daughters feared there would be no descendants, so they got him drunk, slept with him, and became pregnant. I know, weird family dynamics there. Abraham again said that Sarah was his sister when they were talking to another ruler, Abimelech. But God told him who Sarah was, so he gave Abraham money, animals, and servants to offset what he feared was a sin. Isaac was born at this time. Animosity was developing between Sarah and Hagar. Hagar and Ishmael left because of this. Then we have the famous sacrifice of Isaac. You know the story. Isaac carrying the bundle of wood, Abraham with the knife. They get right to the point of sacrifice. God stops it. Chapter 22, verse 1 through 19. Sarah passes away, and Abraham goes to attend her funeral. He also sends a servant to search for a bride for Isaac from relatives of theirs. The servant finds Rebekah. Great story, chapter 24. Take a look at it. Abraham passes away and he's buried next to Sarah. Next we hear about Esau and Jacob. In chapter 25, verse 23, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. This describes their relationship from the start. At one point, Esau sells his birthright for stew. Sounds about right for good stew. Another famine. So Isaac takes his family and goes to another country. There's Abimelech again, and the same thing happens. Here's Isaac saying Rebekah is his sister. So like father, like son. But Abimelech saw that Isaac and Rebekah showed affection towards each other, and he stepped away. Isaac blesses Jacob, but he does this through a charade and deception, and it takes Esau's blessing. This enrages Esau, and Jacob has to leave to escape. And because of Esau, the anger, Esau marries from the tribe of Ishmael, which his father said not to. And Jacob then has a dream of a ladder to heaven that has angels ascending and descending, and he named that spot Bethel. Read it in chapter 28 if you're curious. Jacob ends up meeting Rachel, and he makes a deal with her brother for 7 years of service to marry her. But Laban pulls a switcheroo at the last second, and he ends up marrying Leah instead, the older sister. So Jacob agreed another 7 years to marry Rachel, whom he really loved. Leah had lots of kids, Rachel had none, so what does she do? She turns her maid over to Jacob to produce offspring. And during this time, Jacob makes a deal with Laban. He will take all the spotted, speckled goats and sheep as payments for taking care of the herd. But because of his success, he has to flee. Laban pursues Jacob, catches up with him, and says all he wanted to do was say goodbye to his daughters and grandkids. In leaving, Jacob was headed to Esau's place. So he sent people strategically ahead of him in case Esau was still angry. Jacob wrestled with God, chapter 32, verse 22, till the end. During this wrestling, or wrestling if you want, it lasted all night long and there was a name change. Carl will be discussing some of this today. Jacob finally meets Esau and was fearing anger, but what he got was reconciliation. And at that time, Jacob settles in Canaan and worships the Lord. Then we take a depressing turn. Jacob's granddaughter is violated and her brothers get biblical retribution. Read that one in chapter 34. So that's all we have for the patriarchs so far. There's a little bit more coming next week, but this shows that our patriarchs that God put before us were flawed just like us. And the only way we can compensate for our flaws is that we point and look towards God. That's all I have for this week. That's Ken's Catch Up. Thank you.